Hello and welcome to Chapter 8. In this chapter, we make a game engine. What's cool about game engines is that you can make multiple games from a single engine. Right, so let's look at the files. There's a total of 7 demos. The first 5 are components of the engine. This one is the engine itself, and the last one is an extension to the engine. Let's take a look at the first component, graphics. Alright, let's run this. What this demo does is it fills the screen with random graphics. They're all primitive, and every once in a while it clears it. This is all done with the graphics object, which is made from the graphics class. Here's the graphics class, or at least a header to it. These are all the functions offered in the graphics class. We don't have to know how these functions work since we already learned all that. We threw it all in the source file, but from now on, we could forget how they work. We just gotta know what they do. All right, so the first function initializes the graphics. These functions draw things on the graphics. For example, this one draws a pixel, these draw rectangles, and this one clears the screen. This one draws the back buffer onto the screen. There's also functions to get the dimensions of the graphics and a function to get the back buffer. All right, so let's see how that's used. Here we create a graphics object. Down here, we initialize it. And up here where it says free program, actually we don't have to free this object. Other objects we're gonna have to free, but we don't have to free the graphics object. Anyway, here's where we use the graphics. Want to clear the screen, draw pixel, and draw rectangles. Also to flip the screen. Notice that on free program, we don't free the graphics. Almost all of our other components, we're going to have to free them, but the graphics is sort of a special one, right? Let's close this and go on to the next one. Image. All right, this component allows us to draw images on the screen. Let's showcase that. Here it is. Monsters running on the screen. Let's close that. And let's look at the header file. All right, so here are the functions. I'm not gonna go so much into the source since we should already know how to do all this. This is what we've been learning, but I'll go over the functions here. All right, so load. This one loads the image. This one loads the image with a specified frame width and height. This one draws the image at a certain location, and this one draws a frame of the image at a certain location if we specify the frame width and frame height. All right, so this one frees the image. There's functions to get the dimensions of the image in the frame, and a function to set the frame size. There's also a function to check if it was loaded. Let's see how the image is used really quick. Right, so here we create the image objects. Here we load them from a file, multiple files actually, and here we free them. Right, this is where we draw them. This is to draw the background, easy. This is to draw the monster running. It actually draws it a few times on the screen, and it draws it in the same frame on each. So it animates 4. It looks like it animates 4 monsters, but it's just one monster drawn 3 times, 4 times actually. All right, so let's close this and see the next demo. Fonts. Let's run this. All right, so here we make use of outline fonts and raster fonts at the same time. Each of them get their own object. The raster font and the outline font. They each have the same functions. It's just that the meat of the functions work differently. But look at our code for the main file. Right, so here we create the objects. Here we load them. Here we free them. But here we actually draw fonts. And everything looks so simple. And our main file is only about 100 lines long. That's not too bad, but it'll get shorter. Let's close this and see the next demo. Input. Here we'll create an input class. And let's look at that. There's a way to initialize the input and a way to kill it. there's a way to update it. We're gonna call this every single time in our game loop. There's a way to check if a key is being pressed down. A way to check if a key was just pressed down, and a way to check if a key was just released. There's also a way to check the mouse button states that works very similarly, but with mouse buttons. Anyway, there's a way to get the mouse coordinates, warp the mouse, and even hide the cursor. So let's run that and see what it does. All right, so here's my spaceship and I can move it, but I can also drag it with the mouse. And if I right click, I can set its location. I'm actually dragging the right button, but it's staying at the initial position. And if I drag the left button, it actually moves with the mouse. But anyway, let's move on. Audio. All right. This demo is also special because we actually add 3 classes. There's audio class. This one pauses, stops the music, resumes the music. It can also stop a channel. It does a number of things. We gotta initialize it and kill it. There's a music file. That one lets us play music in the background. And there's a way to check if it's loaded. And there's also a sound class. This one lets us load the sound, free it, play it, and check if it's loaded. So let's run the demo. All right, cool. I'm gonna play all the sound effects. All right, cool. That one sounds like you just found some treasure. That one sounds like a laser beam. That one sounds like you hit something, you punch something. That one's a scream. And that's a telephone. If I press and move on. Right, this is where everything comes together. It looks very simple, but it's actually very functional. It's nothing fancy, but all the fancy is under the hood. Let's check that out. Right, so what happens here is that, let's look at our main file. It's only 14 lines or so. That is tiny. That is the smallest main file we've seen in a while. But what happens is that it creates a game object, and it initializes it, and it runs it. All right? So what's cool about that is that here's our game object. There's a way to initialize it, free it, update it, and draw it. Here's where it runs. Basically what happens is that we derive this class, and we can make custom games where we implement our own custom initialize function, free function, update function, and draw function. That is really cool. It also provides us with graphics, input, and audio objects. Right, so this isn't as flashy, but let's look at the next demo. The next demo is really flashy. Right, so let's open this up. And on this demo, we don't exactly add to the core of the engine, but we do extend its functionality by adding game states. Right, so notice here how we derived the game class, and we overrided these functions. Let's see that, and here it is. Right, so this is our own custom functionality, but something else we did was added game state support. Right, so here's a state manager. Let's look at the state manager first. Right, this one is what handles all the states. Basically, you can put states here and take off states, and that's discussed more in detail in the book. But let's look at the states. Splash state. Basically, when you have a state, you gotta override 2 functions, the update function and the draw function. And we did that for both of these. All right, so let's run this and see what it does. This is our initialize state. And this looks a lot like one of those old school 16-bit games where you see a logo coming down the screen, then it stops in the middle. All right, if we press the space bar, the game running state So this is really cool because now we can really cleanly handle states. Other than that, this chapter is finished and we made a game engine. We made one extension. The next few chapters we'll be making extensions and eventually a game. All right, well, thanks for watching and see you next time.